I am building a full mahogany slatted wall for the staircase. Our insurance company says we need a handrail, but I am taking it much further. What I thought would be a simple little project has turned out to be way more complicated. How do you build a 9-foot triangular frame that actually fits? You can't build it in the shop and try to install it. Houses aren't square. You could build the entire frame in place, but then that creates an even bigger problem. So once the frame is in, how do you install the vertical slats without exposing the joinery that is still strong and safe enough to pass code? And why not just build a normal railing with balusters and call it a day? Because a slatted wall is more intentional, it's more visually striking, and if done right, is gonna change the vibe of this entire space and set the tone and style for all future projects in this living room. And this video is brought to us by Squarespace. We are committing to mahogany as the base wood for all future projects in that room. So we're here at my local plywood dealer picking up some specially ordered mahogany plywood. The plywood is going to be used for all the vertical slats, but for the frame, I want to use solid mahogany because it can take a little bit more abuse. Plus, I need some wood to edge band all that plywood. So we are here at KenCraft to pick up some mahogany. I suppose the proper name is actually sapele, but I like saying mahogany, and I know some of you get a kick out of correcting me. We are back from our plywood dealer and KenCraft. All the vertical slats are 1.5 inches thick, so we are going to double up 2 sheets of plywood. And just to distribute the weight, we're throwing more plywood sheets on top of that, and we'll clamp it down. And then for the middle, we're just gonna add some weight. So we're gonna use parts of my lathe. Now, you don't need a lathe for this part of the project. We've got quite the sandwich. My bench isn't big enough, so we laid a piece of Baltic birch on top of that. Then we put some foam on top of that because we know we're going to use the track saw to cut this. Then we put our 2 sheets of mahogany, and then I got an extra sheet of mahogany just in case. That is on top of that to distribute the weight, and then another sheet of Baltic birch to distribute the weight, and then just some heavy stuff on top of that. Overkill, complete overkill. I think just the weight of the plywood would have been good enough, but woodworkers love overkill. All right, so that is gonna dry for a couple hours while we're doing that. So the plywood is still drying, but we're making efficient use of our time by cutting all the mahogany, sapele, to size that's gonna be used for the frame. I'm taking advantage of my big tools with the big shop, and then we're gonna take it over to the lake house where we will cut everything to fit into place. I need to edge band all the plywood slats, so I got one thick boy of mahogany that we're gonna use for that. This looks so good. Oh, that's beautiful. So now that the doubled up plywood is dry, we're gonna use the track saw to cut all the slats. Now that we got our plywood slats all cut up, we're going to glue the edge banding that we made on the edge. The edge banding is about 3/16 of an inch thick, which is a lot better than using regular edge banding because it's so thin, you can sand through it really easily, and the iron-on edge banding doesn't take dings very well. And so that is why I'm choosing to use solid wood. I'm gonna clamp this up with clamps, but I'm gonna use some tape just to make sure it doesn't slide around on me. Sometimes I only use tape for edge banding, but not this time. Can save on a few clamps here by ganging these up. 2 down, 15 more to go. This is gonna look really good. That mahogany plywood is some of the best looking plywood I've seen. Shout out to those of us with carpeted wood shops who have to deal with the pain of using a router without dust collection. If you ever have any gaps to fill, this is the stuff to get. You might hear other people say to mix sawdust with wood glue or to use other brands. Nope, this is the stuff you want. It smells amazing, it dries fast, it works great, it's very sandable, no affiliation, but you want this. We've got the truck all loaded up. We are on our way to the lake house now to get this installed. And while doing so, I'd like to tell you about today's sponsor, Squarespace. We are just days away from 2026. And I have heard that some of you don't have a website yet. Well, maybe 2026 is the year that you finally do, and Squarespace is the perfect place to do so, and let me tell you why. I don't have to worry about code, cloud, the back end, whether or not it's going to look good on my phone as well as computer. I don't have to deal with that anymore, and I can focus on making things with my hands. And maybe you want to put your art skills, your crafting skills, your woodworking skills to use and finally sell some of the things that you make. Maybe you're looking to get local clients. Maybe you just want to document and you need a place to show off your work, and Squarespace is the perfect place to do so. I'm pretty sure you are not a web developer and you don't want to spend hours and hours watching tutorials on how to set up your website. With Squarespace, you go in and you pick a template. You can pick any template, it doesn't matter. You're not locked into that template. Just pick a template to get started. And then you're gonna answer a few questions, like whether or not you want a contact form, whether or not you want a gallery, or if you wanna sell stuff, or if you need an About Me page. And you're gonna click on all of these things that you want. And when you're done answering those questions, Squarespace has already built the site for you in the background. It is actually that easy. And having Squarespace host your domain and your website makes that whole process a lot easier. If you've ever tried to buy a domain in one place and set up a website on another place and then tried to, visit squarespace.com, and when you're ready to launch, let them know that I sent you by going to squarespace.com/makesomething to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Okay, we are pulling into the lake house now. Wish me luck. Let's get this guy installed. I am hoping all of my pieces are rough cut to a decent size. The biggest issue I'm having is I can't build it in place because I have no way of reinforcing those slats without exposed joinery. So we're gonna temporarily build it in place, take it out, work on it, and then put it back. And I'm doing this in 2 sections because it would be way too heavy to build the whole thing and then try to get it in there. So I'm gonna build this section first. There's gonna be a piece of solid mahogany here, a piece of solid mahogany here, and then a tiny little piece of mahogany that's gonna go right here, which is this guy right here, and we're gonna take it outside and make the first cut. It's cold and wintry, so I have this spray booth that we're gonna work in today. Come on in, Dale. If there's one thing that I want you to get out of this video, it is this spray booth costs 180 bucks on Amazon. It inflates in 2 minutes, and you can throw a space heater and your miter saw in there, and you are good to go to work in the elements. So I'm gonna pre-drill some holes so we can screw it into the wall, hoping that there's some 2x4s underneath there, and then we can start building out the other pieces. There's the first piece. That's gonna get plugged later, so you won't see those screws. This bottom piece is gonna go in here. Don't worry about the gaps yet. There's some twist in my boards, and we were learning that this is not square at all. The house is not square. So I'm gonna cut that angle there, and then I'm gonna find the point where I need to cut that angle there. So now we're going to use a plumb bob to find the length of this other board. Now we can cut the slat that's going to go right here. And just as we suspected, it's slightly too long, which is a good thing. We need to ease up on that motherfucker. Just brad nailing that in place for now, just so we can, I got this guy in there because there's some twist in the board and I wanted to get that twist out. Let's get one more in there and then we can take the whole thing out and permanently put them in there. I think we can take this out now, put in the rest, and then put it back in. This angle changes, plus one is like this and one is like this, and so none of the boards fit perfectly. This is way tougher than I anticipated, and I don't have good tools to work here, so this is extremely frustrating. It all just came apart as we were taking it out, off camera, of course, but I have two of the slats that are the correct length. So I think if I just kind of piece it all together, it will all fit back. So I am going to use pocket hole screws without a pocket hole jig to see if I can get this together. I'm just gonna put it back up in there to see if it'll fit right. Fingers crossed that it does. Well, what do you think, Daniel? I think we can make that work. It is the next day. I've had a chance to think, reflect, and learn what I think is probably the right way to go about this. At first, I thought this would be a super easy project. It's a triangle with a bunch of slats. And then I realized, okay, I can't build it in place because I can't reinforce it, or I can't build it in the shop and bring it in place because it might not fit. Where I went completely wrong in all of this thinking was I didn't want to have to do any drywall work. Like there needs to be drywall work done in here anyway, but I didn't want to have to do that. I was going to rely on the painters that are coming in a couple weeks to take care of that. The first most frustrating part of this whole thing is it's a triangle with slats in there. This should be easy. The second most frustrating thing is I tried to prepare myself for all the things that could go wrong. I knew that this wouldn't be straight. I knew that that wouldn't be perfectly level. And so I took in account when making this of those two particular things. What I didn't account for was this plane and that plane are not perfectly on the same. One twists this way, one twists the other way. And here's where else I went wrong. When you buy wood, you're supposed to let it acclimate to its environment before planing and cutting it down. I didn't do that. I never do that because it's never been a problem for me. So the moment I got the wood, I took it into my shop and I planed it down. It's been a couple of weeks since I've done that, and the boards haven't been fastened together. And so now they have a little bit of twist. And that twist paired with those two planes not being on the same plane has made this whole thing frustrating. What I should have done from the beginning, I think starting building it in place and then taking it out and making everything, still a good idea. But I also have to realize that I will have to patch underneath and patch up top and patch the gaps there. That's just part of the process. Anybody who works on homes all the time probably already knew this. I build furniture, pieces that can be moved from one section to another section. I don't build built-ins, things in place, things that have to fit within certain constraints. This is all new to me. And so when I go to put this in, there are going to be huge gaps in certain places. Those gaps are going to need to be filled. I could either trim it out, or what I'm probably going to have to do is just spackle underneath the gaps and make it look right. People who do this all the time already know this. I apologize to those people for making them yell at their computer screens right now. So getting back to building this, I have come up with what I think is a pretty darn good system. I've sped up the process. I now understand what's going on. Let me show you what I'm doing. I made these two spacers that can sit in there like this, which is going to give me the perfect gap. I got this piece of scrap I can set right there. I can take my board, set it on that scrap, come around to the other side, line that up perfectly with the top, make sure that's butted up against my spacers nice and good, and then I can eyeball and see where my cutoff line is. The width of the slats are not the same width as the frame, so I've got a couple spacers that I can set right here to lift that off the table, and then butt that up against my spacers. We're looking good there. And because I'm not using glue and I love overkill, I'm actually putting 3 screws in. Dave from the future here. If you're worried about the solid supile expanding and contracting and the plywood supile not expanding and contracting, here's my thought process. Pretend this piece of MDF is a piece of solid supile. The 2 outside screws are about, at its max, 85 millimeters apart. 85 millimeters of solid supile will expand and contract about 1 millimeter at its max across its width, about 1/64 of an inch. I'm using pocket hole screws because the way they're designed, it brings 2 pieces of wood together. The top part of the pocket hole screw does not have threads, and when you drill that out, this is a little bit wider than this. That means my screws in there are a little loose. There's room for the wood to expand and contract. Plus, 1 millimeter or 1/64 of an inch is not very much at all. So I am not worried about expansion and contraction. And if it does, I know a halfway decent woodworker who can fix it. And that completes the first section. I'm glad I did it in 2 sections because this is quite heavy. Ugh. So working on the second section here, I've got the bottom piece temporarily screwed in and the top piece temporarily screwed in, and I'm trying to find the proper length of 2 of the slats while everything is kind of temporarily in there. And then I'm going to take this off, attach these 2 slats, and then just work my way out just like before. Everything comes down to making spacers, making jigs to make this whole thing easier, which I have them clamped in there right now. We are getting ready to install this, and I am going to use screws and construction adhesive. I'm more worried about the gap up top than the gap here. This can be filled. I'm cutting the second one down. This piece was supposed to butt up against the first one, but I think if I cut this off and then just, instead of having one seam, it wasn't gonna line up. We're gonna have 2 seams. So this will make sense here in a bit. So now we got to bridge the gap on the top and the bottom. Originally on the second half, it was already sticking out on the top and the bottom, but they weren't meeting up perfectly. So I decided to cut them off, and then I could cut to fit the pieces that we need. So instead of 1 seam, we're gonna have 2 seams. So we're gluing and nailing this in place. I will have to add a little bit of putty and do some sanding and then spray finish this off. Looking back, I probably could have built the whole thing as 1 piece, smaller than the opening, shim it so it fits, spackle all around, and then it would probably take a team of like 3 or 4 people to get it in there. If I could go back in time and do that, that is probably what I would do. But this was an amazing learning experience. And by amazing, I mean frustrating. All done. I took an aerosol can and fixed the areas where we had to plug, and it matched pretty well. Same brand, same sheen, and it looks really, really good. Take it easy on me in the comments. Instead of calling me an idiot, let me know what I could have done. That's gonna help everybody who reads the comments. It's gonna help me the next time I gotta do something like this. It's challenging but fun to dive into something that you don't know how to do. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, sapele is gonna be the wood that we're gonna use throughout the lake house, so you're gonna see a lot more of that. I got a lot of drywall patching to do and fixing this, but that's not for this video. It's the first thing you see when you walk in here. It looks intentional, it looks amazing, it grabs your attention. So I can't wait to get started on some other projects in here. That is gonna wrap it up. As always, be safe, have fun, stay passionate, and make something.